What's going on? Austin Zaback here with another episode of the Austin Zaback Show, and I'm very excited for today's episode. We have a very young gentleman in here who's 22 years old right now, somebody that I've watched from afar for a really long time and really admired what he's done and what he's been able to build in his life. He's a serial entrepreneur, a multi-millionaire, and just somebody that is just extremely intelligent. He knows what he's talking about in multiple areas of life and of business, okay? So again, 22 years old, his name is Dawson Gant, and man, it's awesome because now we're finally here face to face. We've met a couple times in passing. We've talked a bunch on the phone and via text message, and we have a lot of mutual friends, but we've never really sat down. So for people watching and listening, you know, this will be my first time really hearing your kind of story and how you've been able to build what you've been able to build, and obviously it'll be their first time too. Yeah. So I appreciate you being here, brother.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Letting me come on. I know we've talked, like I think we got the same car, and then we just saw each other at a couple spots in Arizona. So.
Yeah, that's cool. Initially you parked your red Youre.
Yeah.
I think you were getting a haircut. At the Optima. And it's funny because a couple people reached out to me and they're like, hey, like there's another dude that has a Youre. And I was like, oh, no way. Like, do you know who it is? You know, and they're like, oh, it's Dawson. And then I kind of put two and two together because you knew Brandon, or your partner's with Brandon, I believe. And so I obviously I shot you a DM. I was like, no way, small world, you know. And honestly, until that day, I'd never heard of you. Somehow, I was just a small world, I guess. But
East Coast guy, West Coast guy. So
you just moved here in August to Arizona. Okay, so I guess let's peel back that onion a little bit. So you're 22. You just moved here in August. Like, I guess what brought you here, and what all do you kind of have going on right now in business and in life, and then we'll kind of peel back the onion.
Sure, yeah, so I actually moved out here for our managed service company that involves some e-commerce stuff. We bought a warehouse out here, 40,000 square foot warehouse to basically fulfill orders, do returns, things like that. But I originally started in the East Coast, North Carolina. Started my real estate company out there and was a licensed agent for about a year when I turned 18, and then started my wholesale company, started doing some flips, and now we kind of transitioned from wholesale flips to flips, new construction, and just keeping that wholesale company running to keep pumping us good deals because direct to seller is so important. But other than that, we have our e-commerce company that I've got partners in, and then I've got a nutraceutical line that's dropping in January, kind of similar, just a private label brand that we're creating. Bought a car dealership this year. We've been pretty busy, but I kind of realized from real estate that what marketing was, and how I could kind of transfer that into different businesses. So now serial entrepreneur, just trying to find as many businesses that are transparent with each other and vertically integrate well. Yeah,
I like that a lot. I like what you said at the very end, especially. And I started in real estate too. I mean, I'd already been an entrepreneur for a while, but I did network marketing and things of that nature. But wholesaling, similar to you, probably about the same age. I think I was 17 or 18 years old. Got into wholesaling. You watched a YouTube video, right?
How do I make $10,000?
With no money down, And I'm like, what the heck, And so we obviously get in, and then similar to you, the evolution happens, right? And you get to a point where you start eventually seeing success, and then you say, well, wait a minute, there might be more out there in the world that I can pursue, right? And then the next thing you know, you're doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and you have a team, and you're hiring people and delegating, and it's almost the natural evolution of an entrepreneur, which is really cool to hear that you said that. And then we'll talk a little bit more in a little while about the vertically integration part of it, because I think that's really important. It's something I didn't learn for a long time. And I was trying to do too many different industries for a long time and dabble in too many different things. But we'll circle back to that. So prior to that, just real quick, was your family entrepreneurs? I mean,
no, my dad was in sales, just a regular sales job, probably makes $60,000, $70,000 a year. So I did learn a lot of sales, from my dad, and just hearing him on the phone. It was a work from home job, so I heard him on the phone all the time and picked up small little nuances, how to carry tone and things like that from a very young age. But my mom's a nurse, so nothing crazy, kind of grew up in a small house, had enough, but didn't have anything other than just enough. But was really blessed, supportive parents, stuff like that. And I just realized I wanted more. I didn't know, I talk to people about this all the time because I'm still so young. I didn't know why I wanted more. Now I'm kind of realizing that it's more to impact people and to fulfill other things. But at the time, 17, 18, I just knew that like working for somebody else wasn't what I wanted to do, and that I wanted to have the ability to help people and impact people, and I couldn't do that working for somebody else currently. So I knew that I wanted more, and then found real estate. And learned so much from real estate, because I think even as an agent, and then as a wholesaler, and then as a wholesale company owner, and then fix and flip, you learn so many business lessons in such a small amount of time. You know, as a wholesaler, you learn how to market. You learn how to put out fires. You learn how to do customer service. I mean, literally everything. You learn how to be analytical and track KPIs and things like that. And it's a really good stepping stone to learn what many business owners don't understand yet, and then you can integrate into their businesses and you know, create those systems and processes, because I'm very heavily reliant on systems and processes to make all my companies run, and I learned that all from wholesaling. So
I love that.
Yeah, it was exciting.
That's really cool. I love the journey. I love the evolution. I love hearing it. You know, I'm addicted to, I always tell people, like, part of the podcast is obviously, there's a huge part of it's for other people, but a lot of it's for me too. It's selfish. You know, I get to interview amazing people, right? And I get to learn myself. And so, like, when I listen to you, it's very relatable. You know, I'm the same exact way. I looked at it, and I think wholesaling is a spectacular place. If people are watching or listening and they're maybe thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, they want to get into business, they're not sure. You know, I think a lot of people our age are unsure.
Sure.
They're like, they see social media and they see Forex and Amazon and Walmart, and they see e-commerce, obviously, and they see real estate, they see the insurance industry, they see cryptocurrency.
There's tons of ways to make money.
Right.
Yeah,
million ways to make $1 million, you know? And but at the end of the day, you know, when you're first getting started, like when you're brand new, you really can only pursue like one thing at a time. And for you, it was wholesaling and real estate, and it was the same for me. And then obviously, once you make money and you evolve, then sure, you can go ahead and you can start vertically integrating different industries and businesses and figure out a way to provide value to the marketplace in a different way. Right. What are your thoughts on that? Like, just in general, I mean, are you very pleased with how you got into real estate and kind of mastered that craft and then evolved? I mean, you see so many people that try to do 12 things at one time.
I think that what was really important to me, and what I tell a lot of people when they ask, is it doesn't matter what it is, you need your vehicle to make money. Because once you have a couple $100,000, and that really is what I believe, you know, $100,000 doesn't really cut it anymore. $250,000 to $500,000 a year in income, you can start to focus on other things that could potentially make you even more money. So for wholesale and real estate in general, for me, it was my vehicle to get a little bit of money, not necessarily wealth, you know, some generating income, $25,000, $50,000, $100,000 a month, and then start to hire and delegate, put other true leaders in positions to lead and make money on their own. And that's important. Make sure your people make money so they'll stay around. And then now I can do what I do best, which is focus on making money in different ways, right? So you know, for the first 2.5 years, 3 years of my short 5-year career, right? Because I'm 18, I'll be 23 in January. You know, I didn't have my first company until 2018, so really 4 years. I really focused on real estate. And I learned things that, you know, okay, I'm an agent, so if I can't wholesale it, I can list it. And, you know, I decided not to have my license anymore so that I can flip and not have red tape and things like that. But I learned so much about delegation and things like that, so I am pleased. You know, I think I learned a lot, but had it not been real estate, I think I would have found another vehicle to get me there. And now that, you know, 2 years from that, you know, you've been really, really focused. You have some money, you know, you have some money to the side, you have some income coming in every month. You can say, okay, now I can take risk, right? That's the biggest thing, risk versus reward. And wholesale is not a very high risk business, right?
That's true.
You can start with $500, you can start with $1,000, you can start with a gas tank and a cell phone, you know, just drive around. So for me and for a lot of people, it's low risk. I don't have to pay, you know, I don't have to put 10 people on salary to start a tech company. I don't have to do any of that with real estate or wholesale in general. There's no license fee, there's nothing.
It's true.
And now that I have some money, I can afford to take risk. And I think anyone in front of a camera that says they've taken risk and not lost is a liar, right? But I can afford to lose on a couple businesses now, right? We've started businesses that necessarily haven't panned out to what we thought they were going to be, but I have the funds now to say, okay, I invested 20 grand in this business. It didn't work out. I'm going to cut my losses and focus on, you know, and you keep the real estate running in the background because it's always printing money.
100%. Yeah. So, yeah. You know, you could turn the wholesaling thing into a machine, right? And you can turn it into, you know, and where other people are winning too. You know, you've got your team, like you say, you put them in the right place and you put them in the, you know, the leadership positions where, you know, true leaders can thrive. And it's a beautiful thing, man. It really is a beautiful thing, and I love seeing people that are able to do that because there is a big difference between just like wholesaling, like, you know, a deal or so, and treating it as a hobby and turning it into a company. Like you say, track the KPIs and actually bring people in to do the different things, whether it be acquisitions or delegation, right?
Yep.
And treat it like a company, because that's where you learn. That's where you actually start to become an entrepreneur, right? There's a big difference, I think, between going and driving for dollars, getting lucky and getting a deal, and being an entrepreneur where you're running a company, right? Where you actually have payroll and you have different things, and you learn all this stuff. And that's what enables you to then become the serial entrepreneur, which you became.
Correct,
And so what was it like? So here you are, obviously. Were you born in North Carolina?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
born and raised, yeah.
So, and I love North Carolina. So here you are, North Carolina, 18, you get into wholesaling, you wholesale for a while. That turns into you cherry picking the best deals, obviously, which is another beautiful thing about wholesaling.
Correct, direct
because
seller.
It's direct to seller. You're looking at every deal, you're analyzing all the deals, and so you get to look at and say, okay, well, I'm going to wholesale these 3, and I'm going to keep those 3. Because these are the best ones that, in my opinion, I like those ones, so I'm going to flip those ones. I think there's more money to be made, and what have you. And so that's a very natural evolution. I love that you did that. And then kind of what happened after that? So here you are flipping, and then at what point did it then become e-commerce? Like, what was your next venture?
Yeah, so I mean, I still probably flip more now than I did ever. We have a ton of projects going on, like anywhere from 10 to 12 at a given moment, and we'll wholesale 5 to 10 deals a month as well. But what I have done is I've delegated, right? I mean, I don't attend much calls on our, with our virtual assistants or our acquisition team. I check in once a week, and I have like a pump-up meeting with just me. But I have leaders in every role: dispositions, acquisitions, project management, contractors. They have their own meetings every morning, and then I just make sure it happened, right? So with that, I was living in Miami I moved there in January of this year, just because I wanted to get out of North Carolina. I wanted a bigger scene. I had my first couple exotics, and I was like, damn, like there's no one near me that has these things, and I want to be around people that are doing bigger things than me because I want to get bigger, right?
Sure.
So I was in Miami doing a bunch of flips and stuff, and I honestly was kind of bored. I was in my condo, and I was like, man, I don't really have anything to do. So I went to a conference to speak about real estate, and I met my current partners now, Brandon and Tyler, and I liked what they were doing. They didn't really have a huge company yet, and I was like, man, like what they're missing is what I've done in all my other companies: marketing, systems, processes, putting people in the right place to handle, fulfillment, account management, stuff like that. And I was like, wow, I can come in and provide massive value to these guys and maybe get a slice of the pie, right? So that's what I did. I was like, hey, I want to, help you guys out, and I did an email marketing campaign for free.
Yep.
I was like, look, if you guys get some deals off of this, you sell some stores with some clients, and you're able to help them out. Give me some money if you want. If not, it's all good. So we did that. It went really, really well. We marketed out to like 500-600 investors and sold a couple stores. And then I was a little bit hesitant because I was like, there's everyone in e-commerce. I want to make sure that these guys that I'm helping out are actually fulfilling. Because if I put my name on it, my reputation on it, I don't want this to go south, because I saw a lot of like, supposed stores and like all, a couple of my friends that got stores from other people and they lost money. So I was like, let me wait before I do anything official. And they sold like 10, 15 stores through me, and all those clients I checked in with them was like, hey, you got a store with Brandon, how'd that go? They were really happy. So I was like, okay, maybe I can put my name on this. So for another 6 months, we kind of worked, well, gosh, that was 2 years ago. So yeah, another 6 months, we kind of worked together, and I was slowly kind of just adding value. And then at some point I was like, hey, I think it's time for us to make something official. I want to come on as an owner of the company. And we were like at 100 stores, and now we're close to 600 managed stores. So I just really had free time to answer your question, and we kind of delegated that now. Now we have a 6-man team that, handles everything, and another couple hundred VAs that, handle all the monotonous stuff. So then I was like, okay, Brandon, Tyler, you guys are making a ton of money. I see it because I'm making it. You guys need to start doing something more than just this. So then we started a new construction company. So we started all together because they had money to spend. I was like, let's start doing some development. Started with a small 1-acre tract, built a couple luxury townhouses, duplex style, sold those, bought more land, and we've done a couple pretty large projects now. And then I was realizing with them, I was like, man, this new construction stuff is really easy. Like you buy the plans, if you got a good GC, and the land works out, it's pretty much, start to finish. There's no really headaches, right? And of course there are some, but I don't have to pull down a wall and find out I misquoted my rehab budget by 20 grand and lose, you know? So from there, we just, started doing that. And it feels like at every turn that I go back to my real estate company. And I've learned so much from that real estate company that I was like, oh, even when I didn't know that I learned it, when I was doing the e-commerce company or the dealership we bought or anything like that, I remember making those same hires or those same decisions very early on in my real estate company. So I kind of always just kept my real estate company running and, can always learn from it and always make money. And I had a guy that was kind of like a mentor to me tell me, because I was contemplating, I was like, my real estate company costs me $30,000, $40,000 a month to run. And, most months we make a ton of money. Some months we don't because we're buying all these flips and we don't have wholesale fees. Should I keep it running? And he was like, man, you never stop the one business that got your foot in the door to all these other businesses.
Wow.
And, there's been times where slow month in another business, my real estate company's come to shine, like just flipped one and made like $116,000 on it last week. And it just came in a really good time. I was like, man, I didn't even know we had this flip closing, you know?
For
and
sure.
it was just like, a little,
so cool.
Just a piece of, whipped cream on the cake, so it was cool.
That's awesome, man. I love hearing this story. There are so many golden nuggets in what you just said, like 10 or 15 golden nuggets as I was kind of counting them, and even for me to go back and listen, and then for other people, obviously. But, I love that you talk about, I've built a lot of different companies with a lot of different people. And the number one thing, I can relate so much to you because I was always the dude, which is interesting because I was never really that good at it myself, but I understood it at a very high level. So I knew how to hire people. Yeah. But I always understood that, hey, in order to build a real company, we need standard operating procedures, and we need to put people in the right places. We need to have systems and processes, and everything's got to work, right? Everything's got to, all the way from
assembly line style,
right? Yep. We need bookkeepers, we need accountants, we need to understand the numbers. What's our net profit at the end of the month? What's our gross? How much? What's our marketing budget? How much are we? And there's all these different variables that went into actually having a sustainable long-term company that could scale and you could grow that, right? And I see, and unfortunately, or fortunately, because I learned a lot. I've been partners with a lot of people, and I've seen a lot of people in the world that they don't understand that. They for whatever reason, they send some DMs on Instagram. They make 20 grand. They don't fulfill.
That's it.
They burn their reputation. I've seen this time and time and time again.
Yeah.
So many people, right? They have no infrastructure. They don't know. They don't understand any of the logistics of building a company. Yeah. Right. And again, I think it's so true. Like you learn that with wholesaling. Yeah. And I imagine and it's funny because I listen to you say that and I'm like, there's probably a lot of Brandon and Tylers of the world that could use a Dawson to come in, or an Austin to partner up with them and show them, hey, here's how you're actually going to build a long-term sustainable company where you have a good reputation in the marketplace.
Right. Well, and that's so important. I think people don't realize the importance of the reputation, right? Let's say you're selling an Amazon store for $25,000, $30,000, right? And you don't fulfill. That could have ruined millions of dollars in business relationships because you don't know. I sell you a store, I don't know who you know.
Right.
And I don't treat you right, or your customer support's not there, I ghost you or whatever. And now you're, at a dinner with a guy that I'm trying to raise capital for an apartment purchase, and you're like, I don't know, man, Dawson, he didn't fulfill, and even worse, he ghosted me.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna invest. So I've always thought about the importance of reputation. And not only the reputation directly to the person I'm doing business with, but what their thoughts of me, kind of like a Yelp review. Who else is talking to that guy? Who else is talking to Austin and getting, his review of Dawson Gant, And I think a lot of people, especially in this day and age where it's easy to start an Instagram profile and make some money and then not fulfill, and like there's no real repercussions that are like jail time or fines, so they don't care, but their reputation in 10 years is going to be so tarnished that they can't get a loan to say with their friends, because nobody's going to trust you.
100%.
So that's always been very important to me.
Dude, I love that you said that, and I think everybody should re-listen to that 100 times. We'll turn that into a standalone clip because I think that's probably one of the biggest flaws that I see in our generation, I believe, in my humble opinion, is that people don't understand the actual long-term repercussion, because it isn't inherently obvious in the beginning, but you're dead accurate, dude. Like, you're dead accurate. And, the reality of it is, when you're dealing in a lot of the spaces that we're talking about, a lot of the people do know a lot of freaking people. Yeah. And the reality of it is, I've had people that have screwed me over before, and I know a lot of people, bro. Yeah. And I'm not going to ever go out of my way to talk badly about somebody ever. Like, I'll never blast somebody on social media. That's not who I am. Of course not, I'll never blast anybody. At the end of the day, if I make a bad investment with somebody, that's on me, 100%. But if somebody asks me, like you say, I'm at a dinner, I'm at this or that, I'm going to tell the truth.
Yeah, because I'm not going to lie.
I'm not going to lie.
If I lie to you, and you go invest with that person, then like, well, Dawson lied to me, and it makes me look bad. I'm not going to risk my reputation to protect someone. Yeah.
So inherently, over the course of time, automatically that person's reputation ends up getting destroyed because you better believe I go to dinner quite often.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of people want my opinion, and I'm happy to give it to them because it's the truth.
Correct.
Right, and I'm always happy to talk about the truth. And I'm just like you, man. I've always believed. I always tell people. I say, listen. And I was even dealing with that this morning. Actually, somebody was saying something about me, and it's always really, really easy for me to stay level-headed. And the reason being is I say, here's the deal. I say you can go talk to as many people as you want in the world. And nobody, I guarantee you, there's not a single person that can ever tell you that I did them wrong.
Correct.
There's going to be people that don't like me.
Yeah.
There's going to be people that just don't like who I am in nature and what I say and how I act. And of course, right, I'm always going to have haters. But there's never going to be anybody that says that I did them wrong because I've never done anybody wrong like that.
Correct, yeah.
I've always made everything right. If there was ever a time and a place where something went wrong or a deal went sideways, I made it right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's important too, that, in the world of business and investments, nothing's kosher, perfect all the time, right? Like I tell people with the e-commerce thing, like, if this was a money printer that I just had off in the corner printing money, I wouldn't tell you about it. Right. It is a business. Things go wrong, things happen. But when things go wrong and things do happen, how you handle it's so important. There's people that, maybe a store gets terminated or suspended. One provider may just ghost you and say, hey, it's not my problem. But the people that stick around and fix it and come out of pocket to fix it are the people that maybe that client wasn't happy in the beginning, but they're like, damn, Dawson handled this so well and stood for me and fought for me. I'm going to continue to spend money with him. Even though it didn't work out perfectly, when it didn't, I want the guy that's going to show up, right? You have a rehab go bad. You want the contractor that's going to show up and swing the hammer till it's done right because he cares about his word.
100%.
So yeah, that's been very important for me. I think obviously there's always going to be people that have negative things to say, especially when we're so young and successful. And similar to you, I can be very level-headed. Obviously, it upsets me or whatever, but I've always told people that have negative things, like, go ask 10 people about it. For sure. And out of those 10 people, no one's got anything bad to say. And then I think authenticity is so key because I can back up anything I say. I just did another podcast and it was a big one, and someone commented on Instagram, was like, hey, this guy should be baller busted, legit checked, because he only been in business for 5 years. And he found one LLC of mine, right? Yeah. And it owned like 2 or 3 properties. He was like, that was started in 2018 and only owns 3 properties. And I almost commented back, but then I was like, dang, my attorneys are really good because I believe in asset protection, right? I've got all my rentals are in different LLCs or small holding companies and trusts and things like that. So I was like, A, I should email my attorney and say, hey, you're doing a really good job. For sure. And B, I was like, this guy took the time out of his life to go search that, came up with the wrong information. If he would have taken that time and looked up a YouTube video or worked as hard as he was working to try to discredit me, he probably would be very, very much more well off if he took all that time. And I was like, one guy discrediting me doesn't really bother me. And if Baller Buster wanted to legit check me, I know I can follow up. I can print my, my corporate tax returns, all that stuff, and prove that I'm making the money I say I am, and prove that I own things. So it doesn't affect me anymore. And I think we were talking about that off camera, like the fulfillment. The cars don't fulfill me anymore because I truly don't have to put on a front. I don't have to put on like this flex. We have nice cars because we enjoy them, but it no longer provides any social validation for me. Sure. Because people know that I'm successful, and if I was pulling up in a Prius, they'd probably be like, maybe Dawson's onto something. Sure. Because they value my opinion and how I move so importantly. It doesn't matter if it's a Lamborghini. Sure, 100%. I couldn't agree more, man. And I think you hit the nail right on the head. You get to a point eventually where you don't feel the need to prove yourself. And I finally got to that point where the more successful that you are, and the more truth that you tell, the bigger threat you are to the people that don't tell the truth and they lie, they steal, they cheat, they whatever. And even biblically, right? Not to get into that side of things, but it's the truth, and the truth of the matter is that you get to a point where it just doesn't matter. You say, listen, I don't have nothing to prove to you. I'm not living my life for you. I'm not living my life for anybody other than myself. And then whatever you believe in, if it's if it's God or the universe or whatever, you're typically somebody's doing it for the bigger picture of whatever that might be, right? And so I think it's just so powerful, man. I think a lot of people that are newer, they get really affected by other people's opinions. And I think that's a really big takeaway that people should try really hard in the beginning is like, hey, you got to really develop your mindset so that when you have the naysayers and you have the haters and you have the people that do try to discredit you, you have to know who you are. Right, and as long as you know every morning when you wake up and every night when you go to sleep that you're doing the right thing, you operate with integrity and respect and good values and good morals, and you're doing the right, you're serving people, you're serving the community, and you're doing good business, then you have nothing to worry about. And anybody that tries to say otherwise is just because a number of different reasons why people hate, right? They're jealous of what you're doing. They wish they don't think they can do what what you're doing themselves. Whatever it might be. There's all these different negative reasons, and it's typically jealousy, envy, pride, ego.
You know, and it's very disheartening, but it's the world we live in.
I've never met someone that hated on me that's in a better position than I am.
Never.
People that are above me or at my level or even close to my level are guys like me and you that can come in and have a dinner, sit down and talk and, you know, lay it all out on the table. The people that I've ever heard talking crap about me and stuff, they're way far behind me.
100%.
And, you know, that's kind of karma in its own, you know?
It is. So, it is. It really is. Yeah, man, you know, I couldn't agree more. I think that it's 100% the truth. I've actually, the same as you, and I don't think anybody ever met anybody that's doing better than them that has talked crap. Because I don't talk badly about others.
Yeah.
Because successful people because remember, success isn't money, it's mindset.
Yeah.
Right? You know, your bank account's always just going to be a reflection of the value you provide to the marketplace and the people you surround yourself with and the mindset that you have, the wisdom and knowledge you've acquired. Money will always just be a direct correlation of that, right? Yep. You know, so at the end of the day, successful people mentally, people that are really successful and understand, the abundance mindset, and they understand, how to truly operate with prosperity and abundance in the world and in life. You know, they just automatically don't hate on people. I don't hate on anybody. Yep. Even the people that have done me wrong, I don't hate on them. Yeah. I won't go talk badly about them.
It doesn't do anything for you.
It doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that people, mistake success with money and wealth with money. And I was talking about this on another podcast and with people. Peace of mind is so important to me. It doesn't matter if I have $10 million in my bank account, $100 million in assets. If you don't have peace of mind, it's worthless.
Wow.
So now, over the last 6 months, last year, I've kind of had this evolution where I'm no longer looking at the dollar and cents. Obviously, I want my companies to be successful, and I want the people around me to make money because they need to, But for me, I'm looking at how do I get the most peace of mind for me, the people around me, and the people I care about, and my future generations, right? I don't want my grandkids and my great-grandkids to have to worry about money or have, no lack of peace of mind. How do I do that? And when that mind shift happened, what I noticed kind of on the back burner of my money, I started making a lot more of it.
For sure.
Because I was no longer chasing it, right? It's like chasing a cat. They'll come up to you when you stay still, but if you chase it, it runs away.
Sure.
So once I started focusing on impact and peace of mind and how I can not only, have my own peace of mind and how I can, my top leaders, how they can have peace of mind, how they don't have to worry about bills and stuff like that, my income and my net worth, everything skyrocketed, right? And I think once you're selfless, the money comes
100%,
and it goes
100%,
and it doesn't matter. Like I could lose $500,000 today, and the value inside of myself would not change because I know I'm capable of making $2 million next week.
1,000,000%. Yeah. So you're preaching what I preach so often, which is so refreshing to hear other people that have that same mindset. Because these are things that I talk about every single day of my life to the people I love and care about, and the people on my team, and the people that when we interview people and do podcasts and stuff, I say the same thing. At what point did you have that realization or that kind of awakening of because I think as entrepreneurs, we always start out. We learn through trial, tribulation, and failure, right? And so we always start out to a certain degree when we have nothing, right? When we're just getting started. We obviously a big goal, our big driving force, I think, for every entrepreneur, to some degree, whether they admit it or not, is just to make money.
Sure, 100%.
And then you do that enough times, then you do that over a long enough period of time, and you go through enough life, then you always see that transition where, again, because money just amplifies who you already are. I believe that. Yeah. And so a good human being that started out as a good human being that makes a bunch of money, you always see that natural evolution where then they have a similar belief later on, which is like, hey, it now becomes being selfless, having peace of mind, helping other people, blah, 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 right? When was that realization for you?
I think of the last year, really, and don't get me wrong, I like money, and I like nice things. I have a certain standard of living that I'm not willing to compromise for, right? But that's not that expensive. I tell everybody, I probably live, like Dawson Gant's personal bills, less than $20,000 a month.
For sure.
That's with all my cool cars, that's with my nice house, my clothes, my girlfriend, everything, going out to eat. But after that, it's fulfillment. It's a huge thing. It's non-fulfilling. I don't care if I make $1 million today, because it's not going to fulfill my personal life. But what I can do with that $1 million, and I can create other companies, like you were saying, and give equity to people that are close to me and help them run and start their own companies, that's a lot more fulfilling for me. But I agree with you too. I think it was after I made a lot of money.
Yeah.
My first 2-3 years in business, they started at nothing, and I remember dropping out of college, kind of made my first $100,000 a month, and that was cool. And then I was like, okay, now I'd like to make $1 million in a month, and then closed some big real estate deals, made $1 million in a week, and then it all kind of starts to wash.
Yeah.
It's all kind of lost in the wash because I know that Dawson Gant doesn't cost that much to live every year. So then you start looking at who can I impact, what can I do that's going to be a legacy versus, a washout. I think about that a lot too, is like I want my name to be around, and maybe for a little bit of ego purposes and other just to impact people for a long time, for hundreds of years. I want to have halls in colleges I didn't attend and things like that. But you don't get that by only helping yourself.
You don't.
So I think, it's a cliche statement, but anything that can help the masses is going to create a ton of money, but you have to go by wanting to help the masses.
Sure. Yeah.
So, I think that over the last 6 months, and I think that especially me and you, we probably, our evolution and our growth as humans has probably been, expedited because we're so young, right?
For sure.
I mean, I started at 17 with making $300 every 2 weeks at Sheetz, a gas station in North Carolina, and then now about to be 23 with a few million in liquidity and a few million in net worth. That's a large gap, right?
It is.
So you're either forced to evolve to continue growing, or you get stuck and you're like a 10-year burnout. I see a lot of that too in our space. There's guys that look like they're billionaires, and then next year you never heard from them again.
Yeah.
They had a fleet of Cullinans, and then next year you see them in an Uber.
Yeah.
And I do not want to be a one-year superstar. I want to be around for the next 30 years. I want to create companies that are as big as any company you see in Phoenix, right? Carvana, things like that. So
I'd rather sacrifice the short term to gain the long term. Every day of the week, and that's how I've always looked at it too. I've invested millions and millions and millions of dollars back into building infrastructure and companies and hiring and all sorts of different stuff. When I could have just easily gone out and lived in PV and bought and like
being comfortable,
100%. But again, it isn't. That's not the purpose, right? Like that's not that. In a decade from now. It's just that's not the end result that I'm looking for, right? I'm looking to make an impact like you and to build companies and to build a legacy. And I think that's what most of the time it's the natural evolution. Some people want to make $1 million a year and they're okay with that
and that's
be done.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, that's fine. When I was telling somebody else this, there's a lot of risk and insecurity, right? That $1 million, I think anything from $500,000 to $1 million a year, there's a lot of risk in never growing again because you feel secure.
Sure.
And a lot of people get stuck. They're like, okay, I've got the Ferrari, I've got a nice $1 million house, my wife's happy, my inner circle, my top 3 people around me are decently happy, so I'm good.
Yep.
And that's okay because that's some people's life calling, is just to be secure and happy and comfortable. There's people that want to be the next Bezos. There's people that want to build, the next Elon, and then you have to find your little lane and say, put the blinders on and go. So
I like that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think that
as long as you're happy, right? As long as the person watching or listening, I always tell people, I say, like, if you were to not look at anybody else, like if you genuinely didn't compare to nobody, right? And like genuinely, like there was zero comparison. What would make you happy in life, right? Like what is it that would be like if you could really paint that picture? What is it? What's the dollar amount? What does that look and feel like? What's your family life like? What's your do you vacation? Do you not vacation? Do you travel? Do you not travel? What kind of car do you drive? Where do you where do your kids go to school, right? And really map that out. Like at what point would you be fulfilled? And then would you be fulfilled at that point if you stayed at that point? Like if there wasn't any growth after the fact, and if somebody, however really people answer that question, I think that's their right answer. Because really everything else is irrelevant, right? If I want to go be a billionaire and they're happy at $80,000 a year, neither is right or wrong. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think after a certain dollar amount, I think there's a study out there that says like $80,000 a year.
Yeah, you don't get any happier.
You don't get any happier. So I mean, some people don't want to put the extra work in, and they're happy there. Which there's roles for those people in life. There's roles for people like us. There has to be employees. There has to be people that work at the fast food. That's it. That's the truth. But I think that for me, I thought I was gonna be happy at $100,000 a month, and then I got there and I was like, wow, like this was not easy, but I know how to replicate this.
Yeah.
So I want to do it again and again and again and again. And then you see these movies and TV shows of these like, billions. I watch that all the time, and I'm like, dang.
Bobby Axelrod,
Yeah, the dude's got it down, But also he had the power to do so much for, maybe he's a villain to some people in that show, but he was doing things, people who got fired, he took care of them. So I don't know, that's cool.
It is.
And to build that and like see the support, I think that's a big thing for me. Like I wasn't a super loner person, but I wasn't super popular in high school. But it's funny to see now. Like I like having big leadership roles, and I like people following me, and I like being able to put them in positions to win. Yeah. Because a lot of times, my first couple of employees, they had to take a risk with me because I wasn't 100% sure I could cover payroll in 6 months, but they took it, and now they make a ton of money, and now it's worth it. But things like that are always evolving in my head, right? So I may get to the point where X amount is enough.
Yep.
But I haven't got there yet.
No.
So.
No, and guys like us, it's always it's a kind of a moving target, I think,
Yeah.
to a certain degree. And I think that, you get to the goal that you're trying to get to, the target immediately changes.
Yep.
In that very moment. You say, hey, when I get to blah, 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 then blah, blah, blah. And then that, as soon as you hit it almost immediately, there's a new target, right? Because we're achievers in nature, I think you are.
For 100%.
Because you remind me of me. And when you're an achiever in nature, you have to achieve. It isn't necessarily, like we talked about a little while ago, it's not necessarily the money.
Yeah.
It's not really any of that. I mean, at least not once you make enough of it, right?
Yeah.
Then you get to a point where it's the game. It's literally the game. It's helping people. It's change. It's legacy. It's all these different things that kind of have a little bit to do with money, but really, in the grand scheme of things, it just takes money to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think balance has been important to me. I'm sure that maybe that was a struggle for you because we are very similar. For a long time, like this year, my birthday is in January 3rd. It's the first time I'm traveling for my birthday.
Wow.
I have had millions of dollars sitting in a bank account, and I love to work. So me and my girlfriend have been together for like 2 years, and she was like, Dawson, we've never like taken a trip. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of crazy. I was thinking about that, but I was like, I get a little bit of like anxiety when I'm not in the office, when I'm not able to work. But now, like the last 6 months, I've really been focused on balancing that. So like now, when I first had my first office, I was there from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Yep.
And if I didn't have anything to do, I was finding stuff to do, right?
Sure.
But now, I'm trying to like have a little bit of balance and like make sure I go to the gym in the morning, make sure, I'm at the office at a decent time, but I'm not staying until 10 p.m. unless I have to, right? And that's been a big thing for me, and that's been fulfilling for me, is to understand that I can, evolve as a person and make sure that my personal relationships are good, my business relationships are good, because I think that if you continue to have the target as only monetary, you can lose a lot of the things in your life that are important. And for me, I think monetary, money is only about 20% of happiness. The other, 80% is a combination of mental health, physical health, and then, your relationships around you, right? I've talked to a lot of people that, are 50, 60 years old and worth a couple $100 million, and they're like, yeah, like my biggest regret is like I stopped talking to my younger brother, and I didn't come to Christmas the last 20 years, and now he's passed away, and that was a huge regret that I cannot, ever go back. I can buy as many buildings as I want, I can, fix anything monetarily, but I can never get my brother back. So I kind of had that realization. I want to make sure I'm impactful in that standpoint too, and be a good friend, be a good brother, be a good, boyfriend, be a good son, so that's important to me now as well.
And I love that. I think it's a big takeaway. I've screwed that up a bunch in my life. Anytime I talk to anybody, I just tell the truth, right? And that's what I do. And there's been seasons of my life where, in different seasons, I've only been focused on financial, right? And family went to the wayside, and relationships went to the wayside, and all that went to the wayside. I'm honestly really glad I did go through all that personally.
No, for sure.
Because it really actually opened my eyes to what was important and what's not important. Or what's, I guess, important and more important,
Correct,
And so, because money's important, but it's not the most important, right? When you know how to make it, and you know how to delegate, and you figure out a way you can do both, right? And I think, to your point, you have to, you do see a lot of people that have a lot of money and they don't have anything else. And that's a scary thing. I actually grew up with, people that I looked up to, without name dropping, that were like family members and stuff like that they had money and no relationship, no marriage, no kid, no nothing,
6,000 square foot house,
right.
It's just them.
And it's just them, and they're alone, and you could see it. Like, you could literally interact with these people, and you could feel the energy of, like, they know they could drive whatever car, wear whatever sunglasses, whatever watch, whatever. And at the end of the day, they just didn't have the things that really gave them the experiences and that connection, that love, the fulfillment, the stuff like that, right? So I think learning that at a young age is honestly, like, really, really important. I think you're 22 going on 23, dude, that's massive. Like, if you can maintain that, that's a huge, huge thing. And same with me, right? I'm 26, I'm a couple years older. But dude, I think, like, people don't realize that till it's too late normally. And so I think it's cool, like, that we're able to share that with other people, and hopefully people watching and listening will take note of that and be like, okay, I'm gonna start this day one, right?
Instead of going
try
through
to implement
seasons.
it.
I'm grateful for those seasons I went through too. There were times that I had to put stuff on the wayside, and that's sacrifice. But I think that if you get too far along and it becomes a normality versus a sacrifice, right? I'm a firm believer in sacrifice. I didn't go out for my first year. I only went to college for a year, but I didn't go out. I was cold calling in my dorm rooms, and that sacrifice has paid off immensely. But when sacrifice becomes a normal life, then why are you sacrificing?
There you go.
So
I love that analogy. I don't think I've ever heard it put that way. I really like that a lot. That I've never heard it put that way, actually, you know, and that would go back to like what I was saying about the seasons.
Yeah.
But if you live your whole life in one season,
it's not a season.
Then it's not a season.
Yep.
It's just the way you live your life.
Correct. 100%.
Right, and that's where it becomes the issue, 100%. You know, because there will be times, right, where you have a family and kids, and it's a rough year in business.
Yeah.
And for a year, you got to sacrifice, and you tell your wife, you tell your kids, like, hey, honey, like, you know, look, you know, I'm gonna try to go fix this and make it right and do whatever I got to do, and next year we're going to be able to, I'm going to be able to pivot, and we're going to be able to do more stuff again, right? And that's going to happen.
100%. I mean, it happens to this day. I mean, like to kind of share something with going on personally, we're not personally, businessly, with me. Like we've got a bunch of land I'm closing on the 28th, and we had an investment that I do some private money lending, and whatever happened, it was about $500,000. It's not going to get paid back on time.
Yeah.
So I've got to spend about $500,000, closer to $600,000 in liquid cash on the holidays. Can't move any money around on the 28th. And, you know, it doesn't matter to me. I know that I was saying, okay, maybe I'll just sell my Lambo, right?
Sure.
It's my dream car. I did the twin turbo kit. I spent $100,000 in that. And I was talking to some people. They're like, wow, you're going to sell your dream car? And I kind of had an epiphany, and then I spoke to them about it. I was like, look, if I sell my Lambo and I get my cash out of it, no big deal. I'll be able to buy this land and make a few $1,000,000. And in 6 months, if anybody said anything about me selling the Lambo, like I fell off or anything like that, I can buy 3 of them.
Yep.
And still have a couple $1,000,000. And that has what has pushed me and propelled me, and probably you too, forward, because I can delay the gratification.
For sure.
I will sell every watch I have, every car I have, if it means putting myself in the next step and the next, tier. So for me, it's not a big deal. I'll sell the Lambo. Yeah, it sucks. But I got a Ferrari.
Doesn't matter.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and I'll make that sacrifice right now to do where some people might say, nah, I'll just lose the earnest money.
Sure.
I don't have the liquid cash. I'll find the liquid cash.
100%.
I'll probably end up raising the money, and it'll be no big deal. But I'm willing to.
100%.
That's the point. I think that some people are, once they get to where we're at, they're so scared to lose the status that they end up losing a lot more.
Yeah, and honestly, I couldn't agree more. The status becomes it almost becomes like a plague for them in their life, because they're more focused on what they look like to other people than who they actually are as a human being. Yeah. And I think that is a big thing. I mean, you can get way off track in life living like that, right? Yeah. Where you start out, and so it's like, dude, like at some point you got to ask yourself, and it's hard. Like even being an influencer stuff is difficult, right? Because you're constantly, people are like idolizing and stuff, and so but you have to constantly remind yourself, like, hey, like at the end of the day, like I'm doing it to help people, and I'm doing it like change the world, leave a legacy. But like this is really like I'm doing it for me and for the people I love and care about, like and all of that. And so it's like, I don't care what I look like to the world, man. Yeah. Like if somebody wants to look at me and judge me, that's on them, not on me.
Yeah. And I think there's balance. Like people say, oh, I don't care what people think about me, but we have to buy the cars. We have to do these things because people do not listen.
100%.
Unless everyone has shiny object syndrome. Yep. Everyone has shiny object syndrome. So if you don't have the car, they're not going to listen to you, and they're going to miss out. So if your end goal is to impact millions of people, you have to get their attention.
Good marketing.
Yeah, 100%. And I tell everybody that. Like when I had my red Youre, they were like, was it a tax write-off? I was like, yeah, but it probably made me a couple $1,000,000 because it was great marketing. It added credibility and things like that. So I mean, I don't care. I'll use it for that, but it's a tool.
For sure.
And when it becomes a necessity, like, oh, if I don't have a Lamborghini, people are not going to be my friend, or they're not going to want to do business with me, or I'm going to feel like less of a person, that's when it becomes a plague, like you were saying, because it affects your mental health.
Yeah.
Like I mean, shoot, I've got my truck, and it's a nice truck, but I'd prefer to drive that.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about parking. I take it off road. Like me and my girlfriend went from Joshua Tree to Big Bear Lake off road for like 2 hours of straight trails. I've had a side-by-side in North Carolina and stuff like that, and that's fun for me.
Yep.
But, nobody really cares about the truck.
No.
They don't care. That doesn't make me look wealthy, but I enjoy it. So I think that's important. And again, we go back to balance and peace of mind. That's top 2 things for me.
For sure. Yeah. And I agree, man. I think that, 100%. I think it's just understanding. But you got to be intentional. You got to be intentional in what you're doing and what you're buying, what you're saying, what's coming out of your mouth, how you, the whole thing is just got to be intentional. Yep. And I think when you start getting unintentional, you start just doing stuff to do stuff, you don't know why you're doing it, then it becomes the issue, right? Yep. So yeah, 100% for dudes like you and me, I've owned, multiple exotic cars, over the years. Me and my partner had an exotic car rental company for a little while. And, and so, and then I've owned multiple personally, it's like my 4th exotic that I personally owned. And then, I've owned a lot of just nice cars that I don't even consider exotics, just Range Rovers and all kinds of crap like that, and it's always been good. But even in real estate, like, I would say take it even a step further, like it's credibility. you know, like, and you said like you said that I guess too, but like when I even like pulling up to a house and the Youre could like shoot me in the foot sometimes, but even just driving like a real nice like Range Rover or something. You know, dude, it like honestly, I think like because I had, you know, even when I became a real estate agent when I was like 18, and at a very minimum, like I always had at least like a Mercedes or like a BMW.
It does add
you know?
credibility.
100%. Because like I can't pull up to a listing presentation at $1.5 million house in a Corolla. I can't. You know, I mean, I'd have to like park around the corner and you know, it does, because we do live in a world where people are going to be like, why is, you know, they're just going to think to themselves, and even if they don't even like consciously realize that they're thinking it, they'll have this like little bit of doubt in their mind, even on a subconscious level, right? Because it's just kind of the world we live in, I believe.
Yeah, and I think that there's also benefits, like, you know, you could have an Apple Watch, it's $300, you could have a $40,000 AP, but my watches have made me a ton of money. They're conversation starters.
Every time I get in the elevator, bro.
100%.
Nice watch.
You go to a bar, like we were in Miami, we're like, it's the Thai, that's where we go when we travel down there, and you know, there's a guy beside me with a Richard Mille, it's $300,000. I got a little $40,000 AP, and I'm like, hey man, that's a nice watch. He looks at me, he's like, oh, he's got a decent watch
100%.
too. Wonder what he does, and you made a connection, right?
100%.
So, but again, I don't buy the watch to flex. I buy it intentionally to, you know, share relationships and start conversations and improve my credibility, right?
100%.
It's hard to sit, you know, with an Apple Watch on and say, yeah, I've got a couple $1 million in the bank, to a guy with a Richard Mille. He's probably not gonna take you serious.
No.
And that's a lost relationship.
At least not in the beginning, right? Like, you know, you could probably go make a few $100 million in life and really get known and be publicly, you know. And you could ball out real hard. Like like if Grant Cardone right now walked into a building and wasn't wearing nothing, I wouldn't think he was broke. I'd be like, this dude's humble. You know what I mean? Like he just forgot his watch at home. He don't care. You know, but 100%. When you're first starting out, like there is something to be said about like absolutely being intentional. Because I couldn't agree more, dude. I've had the amount of conversation starters I've had from the watch and the car and this and that is unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable. And you attract people that are intelligent and they want to be around you, and these are good, powerful relationships
and
that you're building.
100%. I think my cars have, you know, inspired people, and then I think I've got employees because of my cars. And they could be your next, you know, your next catalyst for your next $20 million. You know, some great guy that wants to come work for you because he likes your car. And you needed him. He was a puzzle piece. So I think about stuff like that.
And he needed you.
100%.
You know, like that dude's gonna go make $250,000, $500,000 a year.
It's hard to offer a guy a job at the gas station when you got a Corolla.
Right, 100%. Yeah, dude, I've had a lot of sales guys that thought, the majority of like all my sales dudes and everything have all come from social media. You know, I've never asked them like, hey, why'd you follow me? But I'd imagine it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. You know, I mean, like if I wasn't doing what I was doing, would they have followed me? Absolutely not.
Yeah, the cars and the watches brought them in, but then your value kept them.
100%.
And that's why they're in your office.
100%. And that's why I tell people even on social media, I say, hey, if you're gonna grow your social media, I said it's a combination of having a bunch of followers and growing it that way, obviously, real legitimate followers, and then but posting valuable content, because I was like, you can post all the valuable content in the world, if you don't have no followers, nobody sticks. The opposite's also true. You can have all the followers in the world, no value, nobody sticks. Right? And so it's the same thing in everything that we're talking about.
100%. Yep.
So yeah, dude, I absolutely love, you know, just kind of everything about, you know, the stuff and doing it with intention, right? And doing it the right way and being humble, but at the same time being a good marketer. I think there's just a balance to everything in life, you know? And like it's been pretty much what we've been talking about for the last little while is just balance, right? And that applies, I think, to every area of life. So I have a couple just like random questions. You know, obviously, we know as entrepreneurs, somebody that's built, you know, wholesale company, a ton of different companies, you know, you've been through a lot of trial and tribulation. And we were even talking a little while ago about like age and stuff. And like the reality is like you've kind of condensed time. We both have. And you especially being, you know, 22, you know, and I believe that even take it a step further, like age is irrelevant. It's about like wisdom, knowledge, and experience. And you can experience more life at 21 than a 50-year-old can if you force yourself into those situations, right? But over the course of the last, you know, like 4 or 5 years or whatever, you know, what were some of the challenges that you faced, like in scaling some of the different companies? Even like what it might even be like an example for me is that I always, for a long time, finding like good people was really challenging.
Personnel is the toughest thing ever.
Personnel, and would you agree with that? You think that's been one of the biggest challenges for you, or have there been others?
I mean, you know, especially with the real estate company, wholesale is nothing new. You know, we're not reinventing the wheel. Me and you are probably really good at what we do system-wise. But we're not reinventing anything, right? Personnel was super tough for me. It continues to this day to be tough. I had a couple kids steal from me, you know, my first 2 years. Just recently had a kid, like, you know, was like one of my top guys, funneling deals to the side, you know, and I've always been learning lessons. But personnel is tough. I learned lessons of like becoming friends with my employees. That's really tough because once you're friends with them, they don't respect you as much. You know, having that work-life balance. So that was one struggle I really, into this day, you know, we're still honing it in. I've got a really good team now, and, you know, we'll continue to grow that team. But it's trials and tribulations. You probably hire 5 to fire 4,
Oh, at least, yeah.
Or it just doesn't work out. It's especially in the real estate world, it's tough to get someone that's going to come in and, some of my best guys were making $50,000 a month, but they're banging phones. They have no life. They're just banging phones, and that's a special breed of person that's willing to do that to get that reward. And another thing is diversification, which I've really been pushing the last 2 years. In my investments, my passive investments, my long-term stuff is just being diversified. There's been a couple where I went a little too deep in one and lost, but I tell everybody my ability to be so successful is because when I lose, I bounce right back up.
Wow.
I can lose it all today, and and I kind of ask people this: if you lost it all today, how long would it take you to get it back?
Sure.
And my guess would be 1/3 of the time it took me the first time. So, those are the first 2 big things that.
And those are big, dude. And I think I can relate to both. I think that personnel is extremely difficult. I still struggle to this day, and I'd imagine that that struggle will never come to a screeching halt. We're gonna struggle for the rest of our life, because I think and even just in general, like the world that we live in right now. You go to McDonald's, they have help wanted right on the window.
Everybody does,
right? Like everybody. It's not. I talk to I've been in rooms with people that are doing significantly more than me, and they're struggling. So I don't think that struggle is going to come to an end. I think finding good people is really challenging,
and keeping them
is very hard, right? So it's finding them and then keeping them, and it's so many other things. It's creating a culture where they feel like they can thrive and they can succeed in your culture, in your environment, positive culture, positive environment, not a toxic one. And man, there's a lot that goes into like building a team, I think.
And knowing the types of personalities you need to have a complete team, right? Because you can have a bunch of studs that are really good at acquiring deals, but if you don't have the integrators that know how to run the systems, and you don't have the customer support, people to handle the title problems and the closings and stuff like that, just for the real estate. And that goes on to every other business. You need a sales guy, you need a customer support, you need account managers. It's hard,
Very hard.
And I think that a lot of people, and something I used to struggle with is I was like, okay, I hired that, I don't need to step in. Now, maybe that lasted for a few months. Now I'm willing to step in and get on sales calls if I have to. I don't want to, but I will. So, and show my guys that, that I will step in and take over if needed. Has helped me a lot too, just kind of that morale.
Leading from the front, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really important too. I've told my guys a bunch, like I'm always happy to step in, and do whatever I can. Because you see leaders that lead from the back. And leading from the back
it's more like a dictator.
Is more like a dictatorship, right? And people aren't going to respect you.
Yeah.
When you lead from the front and you are actually who you say you are and you do what you say you do, then I think it's a respectable attribute, for people.
I think there's a million people that could be very, very successful. Not everyone's going to be a business owner, but there's some people that just need confidence too. Like we just hired a guy for our crypto space stuff, and he's got a lot of really good ideas. I don't think he's ever had anyone confident say, hey, let's pursue these ideas.
Yeah.
So if a guy like me comes in and says, hey, I have a little bit of the funds to back these ideas and I support you, dude, it's endless.
Yeah,
so people need support. People need to know that they're doing good and they need to be validated.
Yeah.
So when you can do that and pump people up and get them excited about coming into this office every day, the results can be extraordinary.
They can, and in any area of life. And I believe that you can go fast alone, you can go far with people. So at the end of the day, you've got to figure out yin and yang type of relationships all throughout life, and figure out what other people bring to the table. How can you bring something to the table? How can you make a symbiotic relationship with everybody involved? Create a bunch of win-win scenarios for a living, and you're going to be extremely successful, like without a shadow of a doubt.
100%.
So what's next for you? Kind of in conclusion, like what are you working on now? You've got obviously the e-commerce thing, which is incredible, by the way.
Thanks.
The fact that and I'd love to after the show talk to you more about that. I'd love to get more involved in e-commerce. I've got a Walmart store. Well, I had a Walmart store, and I've got an Amazon store, obviously. But
we'll talk. Yeah, I mean we've got that is something we're scaling. We're moving into private brands, so things you can actually exit. So some of our bigger clients are now starting to develop their own private brands that we're going to try to sell for a few million down the road. So we're always taking new clients for that. Real estate company, actually, I got a little bored with it at the beginning of the year. We're really diving back into it now with the new construction and the flips. We have our car dealership that we're kind of silent on.
Which you just bought.
Yeah, just bought that in September.
Okay.
So, we got an exotic car dealership out of North Carolina, hoping to bring a full dealership out here soon. And then other than that, man, I'm looking at kind of my exit. What does the next 5 years look for me? How can I build a couple companies that I can sell off and kind of retire?
Yeah, so, I like that a lot. Spend time with your loved ones. Obviously you got the girlfriend, everything like that.
And passion projects, that's big too. So once we exit a couple businesses, I want to start building passion projects that are gonna maybe not necessarily make me $100 million, but impact 100 million people.
Sure, which is awesome. And by default, the money comes, man.
100%.
The money always comes, when you're not focused on it. Like you said earlier, when you try to chase money, money runs away from you. And when you get to a point where you don't need to chase the money flows.
Yeah.
Every single time, and I tell people that all the time. Well, I love it, dude. I think we could obviously talk for hours and hours and hours, and we'll have you back on the podcast at some point and dive into more specific details on whatever. So we'll definitely do a round 2. But I'll ask one more question before we hop off, and that is like, what is the one thing, you probably said it multiple times on the podcast, but it could be a relationship, with your girlfriend, your family, whatever. It could be anything that you've learned in life. It could be business, it could be anything. But if you were to give like a younger version of yourself just kind of one piece of advice that could pertain to anything at all, what would that be?
I think that, again, strive for the peace of mind. I think that if I would have started looking at peace of mind a lot earlier, I'd be maybe even farther than I am today. Because peace of mind is so easily transversable to many different aspects of life. So peace of mind in business can be different from peace of mind in family, but once you have that, you're able to just go to the next echelon of success and wealth.
Yeah, I love that a lot. And that's obviously a mic drop. So where can people find you if they want to find you on social media?
Social media is just Dawson Gant on every handle, Twitter,
Dawson
Instagram,
Gant.
all that good stuff. Yeah.
Cool. And we'll put his information down below on every platform, iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube. If you're on YouTube, make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Smash that like button, drop a comment down below, leave a review depending on what platform you're on. Dawson, I really appreciate you being here, brother. I'm looking forward to having you again.